Robert Nash wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the loud factory floor. The Detroit auto plant hadn't changed much in the 20 years he'd worked there, except for a few more robots and fewer human workers. At 45, he was one of the oldest workers left, making sure the machines kept running smoothly. He didn't know that today would change everything, not just for him, but for all of humanity. High above Earth's atmosphere, hidden behind complex cloaking technology, the Eternal Observation Vessel Star Seeker hung motionless. Inside, Coordinator Xylith stood before the ship's main viewing screen, their silver-white skin reflecting the soft blue glow of Earth below. After 10,000 years of watching humans, very little surprised the ancient being anymore. But today was different. "Show me the energy readings again," Xylith commanded, their voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The holographic display filled with numbers and patterns that would have made no sense to human eyes. "The readings are correct, Coordinator," said First Observer Lyra, her crystalline form shifting with concern. "We've detected the same energy signature from 17 different humans in the past month. It's growing stronger." Xylith's 4 eyes narrowed. In all their million years of existence, they had never seen anything like this. The Eternals had watched countless species rise and fall across the galaxy. They had guided some, ignored others, but Earth had always been different. Back in the factory, Robert's head started to hurt. It wasn't the usual headache from the noise and heat. This felt deeper, like something pushing against the inside of his skull. He grabbed his toolbox and headed toward the break room, hoping some water and quiet would help. "Hey Bob, you okay?" asked Linda Peterson, one of the newer workers. "You look kind of pale." "Just a headache," he said, forcing a smile. "Nothing serious." But it was serious. In orbit, Xylith's instruments were going crazy. "Energy spike detected," Lyra announced, her crystalline form glowing brighter with excitement. "Location: Detroit, Earth. The signature is stronger than anything we've recorded from a human before." Xylith moved closer to the display, their ancient eyes studying the readings. "Focus all sensors on that location. I want to know exactly what's happening." Robert barely made it to the break room. The pain was getting worse, and now he was seeing things, strange patterns in the air, like ripples in water. He sat down heavily in a plastic chair, his toolbox clattering to the floor. "What's happening to me?" he whispered to the empty room. On the Star Seeker, alarms started blaring. "Coordinator." Lyra's voice was urgent. "The human. He's generating quantum field distortions. The fabric of local space-time is fluctuating around him." "Impossible," Xylith breathed. But they knew better. In their long existence, they had learned that impossible was often just the beginning of something new and terrifying. The lights in the break room began to flicker. Robert's vision blurred, and he could have sworn he saw through the walls for a moment. Not just through them, but through the layers of reality itself. He saw strange shapes moving in dimensions that shouldn't exist, felt knowledge pouring into his mind that no human was meant to possess. "Star Seeker, this is the Mars Research Station." A new voice cut through the ship's command center. "Are you detecting these anomalies? Our instruments show reality distortions spreading from the Earth location." Xylith's form rippled with concern. "Confirmed, Mars Station. Stand by for emergency protocols." In the break room, Linda had returned to check on Robert. She found him curled up in the chair, his eyes squeezed shut, mumbling words that didn't sound like any language she'd ever heard. "Bob, should I call an ambulance?" When he opened his eyes, Linda stepped back. Instead of their usual brown, Robert's eyes were swirling with colors that shouldn't exist, like looking into the heart of a galaxy. "I can see them," he whispered. "The Watchers. They've been here all along." Above Earth, Xylith made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. "Send word to the Eternal Council. Classification: Omega level threat. Begin emergency evacuation procedures for all observation posts in the Sol system." "Coordinator." Lyra's voice was hesitant. Surely you don't mean. You don't understand what we're seeing. Scythe cut her off. This isn't just evolution or technological advancement. The humans, they're becoming something else. Something even we don't comprehend. In the factory break room, reality itself seemed to bend around Robert Nash. The walls rippled like water, and for a brief moment, everyone in the building could see what he saw. Glimpses of vast ships hidden in orbit, of ancient beings watching from the shadows, of truths that humanity had never been meant to discover. Linda backed away, her hands shaking. "Bob, what's happening?" "Everything's changing," he said, his voice oddly calm now. The pain was gone, replaced by a strange sense of clarity. "We're changing, and they're afraid of what we're becoming." On the Star Seeker, Scythe watched as similar energy signatures began appearing across the planet. Small at first, but growing stronger with each passing moment. They had seen civilizations rise and fall, had watched species evolve over millions of years. But this was different. The humans weren't just changing. They were transforming into something that could threaten even the immortal races. "Send a message to all observation posts," Scythe commanded. "Priority level. Absolute. Message begins. After 12,000 years of observation, the human containment protocol has failed. The species has developed beyond our predictions. They are becoming aware of the fundamental forces of reality itself. Most concerning, they are learning to manipulate these forces through means we cannot understand or control." Robert stood up from the chair, feeling strange new knowledge settling into his mind. He could sense the panic spreading through the hidden watchers above. More importantly, he could feel others like him awakening across the planet. Ordinary people suddenly touching powers that rewrote the rules of existence. "Coordinator." Lyra's voice was almost a scream now. "The human. He's looking at us. Directly at us. Through all our cloaking fields." For the first time in their million-year existence, Scythe felt fear. Real, primal fear. Because Robert Nash wasn't just seeing their ship, he was beginning to understand it. Not just its physical form, but the fundamental principles that allowed it to exist. And with understanding came the power to change those principles. "Begin immediate withdrawal," Scythe ordered. "Get us out of this system before." They never finished the sentence. Because at that moment, Robert Nash looked up at the sky and really saw it for the first time. Not just with his eyes, but with his new awareness that stretched beyond normal space and time. And in that moment of seeing, he changed something. Something small, but fundamental. The Star Seeker's cloaking field didn't just fail. It ceased to exist. The very rules that made it possible were rewritten in a small bubble of space around Earth. Across the planet, millions of people looked up and saw the massive ship hanging in orbit, its silver hull gleaming in the sunlight. In the break room, Linda stared at Robert with a mixture of fear and awe. "What did you do?" He turned to her, his eyes still swirling with cosmic fire. "I woke up. And soon, everyone else will too." He smiled, but it wasn't entirely human anymore. "The Watchers have been here since the beginning, guiding us, studying us. But they never imagined we'd become this. They never thought we'd evolve beyond their understanding." Above Earth, Scythe gave their final order as the Star Seeker prepared for emergency departure. "May the universe forgive us for what we've awakened. This is no longer our system. Earth belongs to its new gods now." As the massive ship vanished into hyperspace, Robert Nash stood in the factory break room, feeling the power of creation itself flowing through his veins. Around the world, others were awakening to their new reality, ordinary humans touching powers that the immortal races had never dreamed possible. The age of observation was over. The age of transformation had begun, and the immortal races were right to run. Captain Anna Wright stood at the Pentagon's command center, staring at the massive wall of screens showing chaos around the world. It had been 3 days since the alien ship appeared over Detroit, and nothing made sense anymore. As the head of the newly formed Special Phenomena Division, she had to make sense of it all. "Ma'am," a young officer called out, "we've got another incident in Phoenix. A high school teacher just, well, you need to see this." The screen showed a woman standing in a school parking lot, her hands raised to the sky. Around her, cars floated in the air like leaves in the wind. The teacher, Susan Martinez, looked as surprised as the crowd gathering around her. "That's the fifth one today," Anna muttered, running her fingers through her short blonde hair. "Get me a direct line to the Detroit subject." Robert Nash's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but calm, despite the military facility behind him. After his incident at the factory, he had voluntarily come in to help the government understand what was happening. "Captain Wright," he nodded. "You've seen the Phoenix incident. I'm looking at it right now. Can you sense her like the others?" Robert closed his eyes for a moment. "Yes, she's like me, awakening to what we really are. But she's scared. Someone needs to help her understand before she accidentally hurts someone." In Phoenix, Susan Martinez was panicking. The cars slowly lowered back to the ground. But now the asphalt under her feet was turning to liquid and reforming into crystal patterns. Students recorded everything on their phones while police tried to keep the crowd back. "I don't know how to stop it," Susan called out, her voice shaking. "Please, somebody help." High above Earth, the last remaining eternal observation post on Mars recorded everything. The station's commander, Sentinel Vax, prepared an emergency transmission to the retreating fleet. "Emergency report. Human transformation spreading exponentially. Subject Zero in Detroit has begun coordinating with other awakened humans. Their reality manipulation powers are growing stronger. The Martinez subject in Phoenix shows unprecedented matter transformation abilities." Anna turned to her team. "Get a transport ready. I'm going to Phoenix myself, and get Nash on a plane too. He seems to be the only one who understands what's happening." As her team rushed to comply, another screen lit up with urgent news from Europe. A small moon of Jupiter had just vanished. Completely. The astronomical community was in an uproar, but Anna had a sinking feeling she knew what had happened. "Nash," she said to the screen, "please tell me that wasn't one of us." Robert grimaced. "Someone in Poland. They were dreaming and didn't realize they could actually affect things that far away. Don't worry. I've already reached out to them mentally. They're containing their power now." On Mars, Sentinel Vax's crystalline form trembled as they recorded another update. "The humans are developing a collective consciousness. They can communicate across vast distances without technology. Most disturbing, they seem to be instinctively understanding how to manipulate the fundamental forces we use to build our civilization." 4 hours later, Anna's transport landed in Phoenix. Robert Nash was already there, walking calmly towards Susan Martinez. The police had established a perimeter, but the ground still rippled with strange energy whenever Susan moved. "It's okay," Robert called out to her. "I know exactly what you're going through. The headaches, the strange visions, the feeling that reality isn't quite solid anymore." Susan looked at him with tear-filled eyes. "What's happening to me? To all of us? We're evolving," Robert said simply, "becoming what humanity was always meant to be. Those aliens who fled, the Eternals, they've been watching us for thousands of years. They thought they were studying us. But really, they were waiting for this moment." Anna watched as Robert approached Susan. The air between them seemed to shimmer with invisible energy. On her tablet, instruments were recording power levels that shouldn't be possible. "The hardest part," Robert continued, now standing right in front of Susan, "is accepting that the rules you thought were fixed and permanent are actually flexible. Watch." He held out his hand, and reality seemed to fold around it. A small sphere of pure light appeared, then transformed into a miniature galaxy swirling with millions of tiny stars. "That's beautiful," Susan whispered. "It's just the beginning. Here, let me show you how to control it." On Mars, Sentinel Vax sent their final transmission. "The humans are teaching each other. Their powers aren't developing randomly. They're learning, sharing knowledge across some kind of psychic network we can't detect or understand. The Council's evacuation order was correct. We must abandon the Sol system immediately. As the last eternal outpost on Mars prepared to flee, Anna Wright watched Robert teaching Susan how to control her abilities. The crystal patterns in the asphalt smoothed back into normal pavement. The strange energy field stabilized. "Captain," Robert called out to her, "you should join us. I can sense it in you too, the potential. It's just starting to wake up." Anna felt a sudden pressure in her head, like a door trying to open. "I'm not sure that's a good idea. Someone needs to stay normal to help manage all this." Susan laughed softly. "I don't think normal exists anymore, Captain. Look." She pointed to the sky, where the setting sun had painted the clouds in impossible colors. But they weren't impossible. Not anymore. Reality itself was changing to accommodate humanity's awakening powers. "Ma'am," a voice came through Anna's earpiece. "We're detecting massive energy signatures leaving the Mars orbit. The alien observation post, there is, gone." "They're running," Robert said, not needing any equipment to sense the Eternal's departure. "They finally realize what we're becoming, and it terrifies them." "And what exactly are we becoming?" Anna asked, feeling that pressure in her head growing stronger. Robert smiled, his eyes swirling with cosmic fire again. "Something new. Something that can reshape stars and rewrite the laws of physics. Something that can dream new realities into existence." He held out both hands now, one to Susan and one to Anna. "Something that can make the impossible possible." As the last light of day faded, Anna Wright made her decision. She took Robert's hand, and the universe expanded in her mind. She saw the truth then. Humanity wasn't just changing. They were transcending the very boundaries of existence that even immortal races had never dared to cross. On the surface of Mars, automated sensors recorded the last moments before the eternal outpost vanished into space. Their final transmission was simple. "They are no longer our subjects. They are no longer even our equals. The humans have become something else, something beyond immortality, beyond reality itself. May the universe forgive us for not seeing it sooner." Back in Phoenix, 3 humans stood in a circle of transformed reality, their minds touching powers that reshaped the very fabric of existence. Above them, the stars seemed to pulse with new life, as if the universe itself was acknowledging humanity's emergence into a realm beyond mere physical laws. The awakening was no longer beginning. It was accelerating. The last eternal research ship hovered at the edge of the solar system, its sensors focused on Earth. In just 1 week, everything had changed. The ship's commander watched the readings with growing horror as more humans awakened to their new powers. Back on Earth, in a secured facility outside Washington, D.C., Robert Nash stood before a wall of screens. Each one showed a different person discovering their abilities. The numbers were growing faster than anyone could track. 50 new awakenings in the last hour alone, he said to Captain Anna Wright, who stood beside him. Her own eyes now carried the same cosmic fire as his, though she was still learning to control her new powers. "I can feel them all," Susan Martinez added from her chair nearby. After the Phoenix incident, she had joined their growing team. "Each one is different, but they all followed the same pattern." The pattern was what worried the remaining alien observers most. Humans weren't just gaining random powers. They were systematically unlocking the universe's source code. In Seattle, a bus driver named Kevin Rogers had suddenly understood how to reshape matter at the atomic level. He turned a traffic jam into a beautiful garden without even meaning to. In Miami, a young waitress named Amy Chen discovered she could create small pockets of alternate reality. Her restaurant now had windows that looked out onto different worlds. "The thing is," Robert explained to a group of government officials watching nervously, "we're not breaking the laws of physics. We're learning there are no laws, just patterns we can change." One of the officials, an older man with gray hair, leaned forward. "Are we safe? Are these people dangerous?" Susan smiled gently. "We're as safe as we've ever been. Maybe safer. People aren't using these powers for harm. They're using them to understand." On screen, they watched as Kevin Rogers helped other Seattle residents clean up the city, transforming pollution into clean air with a wave of his hand. In Miami, Amy Chen was using her reality windows to help scientists study other dimensions. But not everyone was taking it well. The remaining alien observation posts were pulling out of the solar system in panic. Their instruments showed human power levels rising beyond anything they could measure. Another signal from the Galactic Council, an aide reported, handing Anna a tablet. "They're declaring our entire solar system a restricted zone. No alien species are allowed to enter without our permission." Robert laughed softly. "They're finally learning to ask nicely." In a quiet suburb of Chicago, a young mail carrier named John Baker was just discovering his own awakening. He stood in his driveway, staring in wonder as he accidentally created a new type of matter, something that glowed with inner light and floated in the air like soap bubbles. "It's beautiful," his neighbor called from across the street. She wasn't afraid. No one was afraid anymore. In just a week, humanity had adapted to their new reality with remarkable speed. "The quantum field distortions are off the scale," one of the scientists in the DC facility reported. "Baker's new matter shouldn't be possible. It doesn't follow any known physical laws." "That's because he's writing new laws," Susan explained. "We all are. Every time we use these powers, we're adding to the basic programming of reality." Anna walked to the window, looking out at the changed world. The sky had taken on new colors as human emotions began affecting the very atmosphere. Hope created shimmers of gold, while peace brought swirls of soft blue. "Robert," she called out suddenly, "look at this pattern. When people first awaken, they create what they can imagine. But soon, they start creating what no one has ever imagined before." Robert finished. "It's like humanity was in a cage of physical laws, and now we're not just escaping. We're building whole new universes of possibility." On the last alien ship, the commander made his final report. "The humans have progressed beyond our worst fears. They aren't just manipulating reality. They're redefining it. Each new awakening adds to their collective power. They're becoming a force that could reshape the galaxy itself." Back in the facility, John Baker was brought in for observation. His glowing new matter had started to exhibit strange properties. It responded to thoughts, could store information, and seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. "I was just thinking about how light could be solid," he explained to the amazed scientists. "And then I thought, why does matter have to follow the old rules at all?" Susan touched one of the glowing spheres gently. "He's right. We've been thinking too small. Reality isn't fixed. It's whatever we believe it can be." The implications were staggering. Across the planet, awakened humans were beginning to work together, combining their powers in ways that made even their new abilities seem simple by comparison. In orbit, satellites recorded the changes spreading across Earth. Cities were transforming as awakened humans reshaped them into forms that merged nature and technology in impossible ways. The oceans were cleaner, the air purer, as people instinctively used their powers to heal the planet. "We should be scared," Anna said softly, watching the monitors. "This much power should be terrifying. But instead, it feels right." Robert finished. "Like humanity is finally becoming what we were always meant to be." The remaining alien observers fled faster as they detected human power signatures beginning to reach beyond Earth. Someone in Australia had accidentally created a small star in their backyard. A group in Brazil had opened a stable portal to another dimension. "The pattern is complete," Susan announced, her eyes glowing as she sensed the worldwide network of awakened minds. "It's not just random people gaining powers anymore. There's a purpose to it all." Robert nodded, understanding. "We're not just changing ourselves. We're changing the entire concept of what's possible. The immortal races flood because they saw it coming. They knew that once humanity broke free of the old laws, we'd write new ones. John Baker said, his newly created matter swirling around him like a constellation of impossible stars, laws that even immortal beings never dreamed of. As the last alien ship vanished into deep space, humanity continued to evolve. Each awakening added new pages to the book of reality. Each discovery expanded the boundaries of what was possible. The pattern was clear now. Humanity hadn't just gained power, they had gained the power to redefine power itself. And in doing so, they had become something that made even immortal races tremble. The universe would never be the same. The massive ship of the Crystalline Collective, one of the oldest immortal races in the galaxy, hovered near Jupiter's orbit. Their sensors watched in disbelief as another human casually reshaped one of Jupiter's storms into a perfect geometric pattern, simply because they thought it looked nicer that way. We must leave. Now. The collective's elder mind pulsed with fear-light. The humans are no longer contained to their planet. They're spreading through their solar system. On Earth, in the newly established Awakened Control Center in Colorado, Robert Nash watched the alien ships fleeing. He could see them clearly now, even without instruments. Massive vessels of crystal, light, and strange matter, all running from humanity's emergence. Another group just left Saturn's rings, Captain Anna Wright reported. Her ability to sense distant events had grown stronger. They're not even trying to hide anymore. Just running. Susan Martinez entered the control room, followed by John Baker. Their powers had grown too. Susan could now reshape entire city blocks with a thought, while John's new form of matter had started spawning its own physical laws. Can you blame them for running? John asked, creating a small display of his glowing matter that showed the fleeing ships. Look what happened this morning in Russia. They all knew what he meant. A newly awakened factory worker in Siberia had accidentally shifted an entire mountain range 50 miles north because she thought they blocked her view of the sunrise. The power to reshape continents was now in the hands of ordinary humans. We need to establish some guidelines, Anna said firmly. Not rules. We're beyond rules now, but suggestions to help people understand their responsibilities. Robert nodded. Already working on it. I've been in mental contact with most of the awakened ones. They understand we need to be careful, even if careful means something very different now. The room's screen showed scenes from around the world. In Egypt, awakened humans were restoring ancient monuments, not just to their former glory, but to impossible new forms that mixed past and future. In the Amazon, others were bringing extinct species back to life, but better adapted to the changed world. Suddenly, all their instruments went crazy. Something massive was happening near Mercury. The stellar architects, Susan whispered, recognizing the ancient race from humanity's new collective knowledge. They're abandoning their solar observation posts. All of them. The stellar architects were among the oldest immortal races, beings who had helped shape stars and build galaxies. Now they fled from human power, their million-year-old installations vanishing from around the sun. Message coming in, John reported. They're asking permission to leave safely. Robert smiled. Tell them they have nothing to fear from us. We're not their enemies. We've just outgrown their understanding. In orbit, the International Space Station had become a gathering point for awakened astronauts. They didn't need spacesuits anymore. The old laws of vacuum and radiation didn't apply to them now. They reshaped their environment to suit their needs. Another abandonment at Neptune, Anna reported. The Void Dancers are pulling out their deep space monitoring stations. The Void Dancers, beings of pure energy who had watched Earth for millennia, were among the last to leave. Their sensors had recorded human power levels rising beyond anything they had seen in billions of years of existence. In the control room, a new alert sounded. A group of newly awakened humans in Australia had accidentally created a bubble of altered space-time that was spreading across the Pacific. I'll handle it, Susan said calmly. She closed her eyes, reached out with her power, and gently contained the bubble. They're just excited. Learning to control it takes time. Time. John laughed. That's another thing we're changing. Did you see what happened in Brazil? They got a city where time runs backwards on Thursdays because people there thought it would be more convenient for scheduling meetings. Robert walked to the window, looking out at the changed world. The sky was a kaleidoscope of new colors as human emotions continued to reshape reality. The old laws of physics were more like guidelines now, and even those were changing daily. Message from the Galactic Council, Anna announced. They're formally recognizing Earth's solar system as a reality exclusion zone. Apparently, that's their term for areas where the normal laws of physics no longer apply. Better than their last message, Susan commented. Remember when they demanded we stop altering reality? As if we could just turn this off. The room's instruments lit up again as another mass exodus began, this time from the Kuiper Belt. Ancient observation posts, hidden for millions of years, were powering up and fleeing. The quantum collective is leaving, John reported, his matter sensors pulsing with data. They say we've achieved what they spent billions of years trying to do. We've broken free of universal constants. Robert watched the ships leave, sensing the fear and awe in their crews. They don't understand. We haven't broken anything. We've just realized that reality is more flexible than anyone imagined. In orbit, the awakened astronauts were building something new, a station that existed in multiple dimensions at once, a place where humanity could learn to use their powers safely. Another message, Anna said softly. This one's from the elder races. They're asking if we'll share what we've learned. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. The immortal races who had watched humanity for so long were now asking to be students rather than observers. Tell them, Robert said after a moment, that when they're ready to approach us as equals, we'll be happy to teach them. But they need to understand, we're not following their path to power. We're making our own. As the last alien ships vanished into deep space, humanity continued to explore their new capabilities. Cities transformed into dreams made real. The ocean floors bloomed with new life. The very stars seemed to shine brighter, as if responding to human imagination. They're all gone now, Susan said, sensing the departure of the final observers. The whole solar system is ours. Not just the solar system, John corrected, his new matter swirling around him like a galaxy of possibilities. Reality itself is ours. The question is, what do we do with it? Robert smiled, watching the changed world through changed eyes. We do what humanity has always done. We dream. We create. We explore. He turned to his fellow awakened ones. And this time, there are no limits to where those dreams can take us. The exodus was complete. The immortal races had fled, leading humanity to their new domain, a realm where thought shaped reality, where imagination wrote the laws of physics, and where the impossible was just the beginning. The age of observation was truly over. The age of human dreams had begun. 1 month after the last immortal race fled the solar system, humanity had changed more than anyone could have imagined. The old laws of physics were now more like polite suggestions, and reality bent to human will as easily as clay in a sculptor's hands. In the newly formed Global Awakening Center, built in what used to be Denver, Robert Nash watched the daily reports of new transformations. The building itself was impossible by old standards. It existed in 4 dimensions at once, with rooms that were bigger on the inside than the outside. We've got another interesting case, Captain Anna Wright said, walking through a wall as if it were air. Such shortcuts had become normal now. A postal worker in Portland. He's doing things even we haven't seen before. The postal worker was Peter Foster, and he had awakened to his powers while delivering mail on his regular route. Now he stood in his post office, surrounded by floating letters that had transformed into birds made of pure light, carrying messages directly into people's minds. That's new, Susan Martinez commented, appearing beside them in a shimmer of transformed space. He's not just changing matter. He's changing the whole concept of communication. Robert reached out with his enhanced senses, touching Peter's awakened mind across the distance. He's rewriting the basic rules of information transfer, making thought itself into a physical force. The screens around them showed other changes happening worldwide. In Tokyo, a group of awakened children had turned their playground into a pocket universe where imagination became instantly real. In Cairo, ancient pyramids now floated above the ground, transformed into living museums that showed history as it actually happened. The rate of awakening is increasing. John Baker reported, his body now partially merged with his new form of matter. We're seeing hundreds of new cases every hour, and each one brings something unique. Anna pulled up a global map showing the spread of awakened humans. The dots of light covered every continent, forming patterns that looked like constellations. They're starting to work together instinctively. Look at this. In Australia, awakened humans had reshaped the outback into a garden that defied old biological rules. Plants produced water instead of consuming it. Animals evolved in real time to match their ideal forms. The very soil had become alive with conscious purpose. Message from the orbital platform, Susan announced. The space station, now a sprawling complex of impossible architecture, housed thousands of awakened humans exploring the cosmos with their new powers. They've made contact with something interesting. The screens shifted to show a vast structure floating in deep space, just beyond Pluto's orbit. It was an abandoned observation post left by one of the immortal races, but it was changing. Human powers had reached it, and now it was transforming into something new. They're not just rewriting physics anymore, Robert realized, watching the structure evolve. They're rewriting the story of the universe itself. In Portland, Peter Foster had finished transforming his post office. It was now a nexus point where thoughts could be sent anywhere in the solar system instantly, carried by his lightbirds. Other postal workers weren't afraid. They were joining in, learning to shape their own versions of his power. We need to establish the training centers faster, Anna said, making notes in a hologram that floated around her like a cloud of glowing text. People are awakening so quickly now, and each one needs guidance. The old ways of teaching won't work, John pointed out. His new matter had spread throughout the building, creating spaces where physical laws could be safely tested and changed. We need to teach them to imagine first, then control. Susan nodded, remembering her own awakening in that Phoenix parking lot. It's not about learning rules anymore. It's about learning to dream responsibly. Across the world, humanity was becoming something that had never existed before. They weren't just changing themselves, they were changing the very nature of existence. Reality had become a canvas, and every awakened human was an artist. In orbit, the transformed space station recorded a strange phenomenon. The sun itself seemed to be responding to human consciousness, its flares forming patterns that matched human thoughts. The stellar physicists who observed it weren't surprised anymore. They were too busy rewriting the laws of nuclear fusion. Another message from the Galactic Council, Anna reported, reading the thought form that appeared in her mind. They're asking if we plan to expand beyond the solar system. Robert smiled. Tell them no, not yet. We have enough to explore here first. Though, he gestured at the screens showing the transformed world. Their definition of here might need updating. In his Portland post office, Peter Foster had discovered something remarkable. His lightbirds could carry more than messages. They could carry dreams, hopes, and possibilities. Each delivery rewrote a small piece of reality, making the world a little more like people imagined it could be. Look at these readings, John said, his sensors pulsing with new data. The background radiation of space itself is changing. Reality is becoming more flexible. Susan walked to the window, looking out at the transformed Denver landscape. The city had become a place where architecture ignored gravity, where streets could think, and where the sky changed colors to match the collective mood of its residents. We're not just changing things, she said softly. We're changing the rules about how things can change. Each awakened human adds their own vision to the new reality. The screen showed more transformations happening worldwide. A farmer in Kenya had turned his fields into a new type of ecosystem where plants grew according to need rather than season. A teacher in Norway had transformed her classroom into a space where understanding happened instantly, without the need for words. "The pattern is complete," Robert announced, sensing the worldwide network of awakened minds. "This isn't just random evolution anymore. We're becoming something that even the immortal races couldn't predict." In the orbital platform, awakened astronauts were building windows that looked out into other dimensions. They could see the immortal races watching from safe distances, their ancient instruments trying to understand what humanity had become. "They still don't get it," Anna said, reading the distant observations. "They think we've found some new form of power. They don't understand that we've changed the meaning of power itself." The transformation of humanity continued, accelerating with each new awakening. Cities became dreams made real. Oceans learned to sing. Mountains danced to the rhythm of human thought. And through it all, reality itself grew more responsive, more alive. Peter Foster's lightbirds had spread worldwide now, carrying not just messages but possibilities. Each postal route had become a path of transformation, each delivery a small revolution in the laws of physics. "We should be scared of all this power," Susan mused, watching the changes spread across the globe. But instead, it feels like coming home, Robert finished. "Like humanity has finally found what we were always meant to be." The transformation was far from over, but its direction was clear. Humanity had become something new, not just a species that could change reality, but one that could change the very nature of change itself. And somewhere in the distant reaches of space, the immortal races watched and wondered what they had fled from, and what they had missed by running away. 2 months after the transformation began, Earth was unrecognizable. The sky shimmered with new colors that had no names in any human language. Cities floated on clouds of reshaped reality. The oceans had become conscious, speaking in waves and tides to the transformed humans who now call them home. In the Awakening Council Chamber, which existed simultaneously in every major city on Earth, Robert Nash met with his fellow leaders. The room shifted and flowed around them, responding to their thoughts and emotions. The last pocket of unchanged reality faded this morning, Captain Anna Wright reported, her form glowing with inner light. "Our entire solar system now operates under the new laws we've created." Susan Martinez, who had become keeper of the new physical constants, nodded. "Even the space between planets has changed. Distance itself has become optional." Through the chamber's reality windows, they could see the transformed solar system. Mercury had become a testing ground for new forms of matter. Venus now hosted floating cities where awakened humans explored the limits of their powers. Mars had turned into a garden world overnight, its red sands transformed into forests of crystalline trees that grew thoughts instead of fruit. "Message from the Galactic Council again," John Baker announced, his body now a shifting pattern of his unique matter. "They're formally recognizing us as, they don't even have words for what we've become. They're calling us the new gods in their official documents." Robert smiled. "Gods? No, we're just humans who finally understood what that really means." Peter Foster appeared in the chamber, his light birds twirling around him in complex patterns. "The collective consciousness network is complete," he reported. "Every awakened human can now share thoughts and dreams instantly across any distance." The screens around them showed scenes from the transformed Earth. In what used to be New York, buildings had evolved into living structures that grew and changed to meet their residents' needs. The former Pacific Ocean had become a vast network of floating islands, each one a unique experiment in reality manipulation. "Look at this," Anna said, pointing to a new reading. "The sun is responding to us now. It's not just burning hydrogen anymore. It's burning possibilities." The star at the center of their system had indeed changed. It now pulsed with new forms of energy that defied the old laws of physics. Each solar flare carried not just light and heat, but pure creative force that helped reshape reality. The children born today, Susan added, they're different from the start. They don't need to awaken to their powers. They're born with full awareness of what they can do. Through their enhanced senses, they could feel the ripples of change spreading through space. Other solar systems felt distant and primitive now, still bound by the old rigid laws of physics that humanity had transcended. Another group of immortal observers trying to study us, John reported, sensing the distant watchers. They're hiding at the edge of the Kuiper Belt. Robert reached out with his mind, touching the alien ships gently. Let them watch. Maybe this time they'll learn something. The chamber filled with new data as humanity's latest achievements appeared around them. Someone in Brazil had created a new primary color. A group in India had built a temple that existed in 11 dimensions at once. Children in Africa were playing games by rearranging constellations. Remember when we thought smartphones were advanced technology? Peter laughed, sending a light bird to deliver a thought to the far side of Saturn. Anna smiled. Remember when we thought we needed technology at all? Her form shifted, becoming pure energy for a moment before returning to human shape. Now we just need to imagine, and reality follows. The real question, Susan said, is what we do next. We've changed everything. Our world, our solar system, ourselves. Where do we go from here? Robert stood and walked to the center of the chamber. The floor beneath him turned transparent, showing Earth spinning below, transformed into a paradise that would have been impossible just months ago. We do what humanity has always done, he said. We explore, we create, we dream. But now, our dreams remake reality itself. John's sensors suddenly pulsed with new data. The collective consciousness is picking up something interesting. The space between stars. It's starting to respond to our presence. They all felt it then. The vast, dark spaces that had separated solar systems were becoming more like suggestions than barriers. Human consciousness was beginning to affect the very structure of space-time itself. We should be careful, Anna cautioned. We've changed so much so quickly. Maybe we should take time to understand what we've become before we change more. That's why the immortal races fled, Peter realized. Not because of what we could do, but because of what we could become. We're not just changing reality. We're changing the very concept of what change means. Through the chamber's windows, they watched as a group of children played in what used to be the Sahara Desert. The kids weren't just moving sand. They were creating new types of matter, new laws of physics, new ways for reality to exist. Look at them, Susan said softly. They don't see limits. To them, everything is possible because they've never been told otherwise. Robert nodded. That's the real transformation. Not the powers, not the changed physics, not even our new forms. It's the way we think now. The old boundaries are gone, and we're finally free to imagine without limits. The chamber hummed with energy as the full council appeared, representatives of every major group of awakened humans. Their forms ranged from nearly traditional human to patterns of pure thought. The last message from the immortal races, Anna announced to the gathering, asked one simple question. What are you becoming? Robert looked at his fellow council members, at the transformed world below, at the changed solar system around them. We're becoming what we always were, he said. We're becoming human, real, complete, unlimited humans. And that's something even immortal beings never imagined was possible. As if in response to his words, reality itself seemed to pulse with new potential. The stars shone brighter, the space between them grew more flexible, and the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what humanity would dream next. The immortal races had fled in terror, but they had fled from a misconception. They thought humanity was becoming something terrible and overwhelming. Instead, humanity had simply become itself, fully and completely, for the first time in its existence. And that, more than any power or ability, was what had changed everything. Through the transformed solar system, through the new Earth, through the minds of billions of awakened humans, a single thought echoed. This was not an ending, but a beginning. The real story of humanity was just starting. The new gods were not gods at all. They were simply humans who had finally understood what that truly meant. And the universe would never be the same.